SEC championship game, Georgia versus Texas, round two. Obviously, the first one in Texas, in Austin. And Georgia goes into Texas' backyard and gives them their only loss. Texas is trying to avenge that loss and, of course, win the SEC championship and possibly get the number one overall seed depending on what happens in the Big Ten championship. We're going to jump right in, look at what our model thinks and what we think this game is going to look like. In the first game, just like the second Jurassic Park's crew of the ship that had the T-Rex on it, the turnovers were all over the place, just like the crew was at T-Rex was eating everybody. But really, when you're looking at just long term, who's been turning the ball over, who's been taking the ball away, Texas has a slight advantage. They're actually plus 0.6 has been their average per game, and Georgia's actually minus 0.1. So they've given away the ball on average 1.5 times a game as Georgia, and they've actually only had 1.4 takeaways. So average giving away the ball 0.1 times more per game than they do taking it away. But looking at Texas, they're actually in positive with 0.6, and that's number 24 in the country. Giving the ball away less than one time a game and taking it away 1.5 times. So takeaways are basically the same, but Texas turned the ball over just a little bit less. Of course, first time, Georgia's defense got after them. They turned the ball over and were able to have a short field, and that's how they were able to win that football game. So Texas just turns over just a little bit less than Georgia on average. The other thing to look at is red zone. That's another big issue that most teams have. Of course, Georgia had the short field, and they took advantage of it, scoring touchdowns in the red zone. And Georgia, they score at 91.84%, which is number 14 in the country, while Texas scores at 79.95%, which is 98th in the country. So Georgia's offense has been a lot better in the red zone, but Texas's defense has been way better in the red zone, only giving up 57.69% scoring. That's number 2 in the country. And Georgia's actually given up 83.3% scoring. That's number 67 in the country, which seems insane thinking about just how dominant that Georgia defense has been over the years. And Texas has really been that dominant unit on the defensive side this year compared to what Georgia has. Whenever we roll through a lot of these other statistics, man, they're almost like splitting hairs. Two really good football teams that have had a really good run this year. But one thing that I think is going to be big in this game is sacks allowed and sacks made. So Georgia is giving up a sack on 3.94% of their passes, which is number 24 in the country. So pretty good. But then you're looking over on the Texas side, they're only giving up sacks on 2.24% of their passes. So just a slight lean there for Texas as far as how they protect the quarterback. Now, that first game was not indicative of that at all. They got after the quarterback, had 6 sacks, I believe, in that game, which is unbelievable. And that's really what's kind of skewed Texas's numbers. So as long as they can stay ahead of the sticks, and I think that what they've been able to do is protect the quarterback because their defense has played so well, they haven't had to put him in so many bad situations where he might get sacked. Where Georgia obviously has played a tougher schedule and been in some situations where they just had to drop back, throw the ball a ton, and that's, I think, why those numbers are a little bit skewed. Now, looking at the defensive side, Georgia, they get a sack on 7.2% of the other team's dropbacks, which is really good. I mean, it's number 40 in the nation, not top 25. You'd think Georgia would be getting a little bit higher as far as percentage and higher in that ranking just based off of history and then the D lineman that they've had. But number 40 in the country, 7.2% of their team's dropbacks are getting a sack. Texas, number 10 in the country, 9.21% of the other team's dropbacks, they sacked the quarterback. So unbelievable stat right there. Top 10 in the country in sacks. And there's a little bit of a lean percentage-wise as far as quarterback dropbacks and sacks and all that. So it's going to be interesting to see how Texas changes their blocking schemes, their protections, and how they want to screen it, how they want to get the ball out quick, what they're going to do to try to change that from the first time they played Georgia to right now in the SEC championship. So that's going to be something to look for. How are they protecting? How are they getting the ball out of the quarterback's hands? And not making him just sit back there in the pocket and hold the ball and go through progressions, get the ball out, make those guys tired, keep them on the field. So slight lean there for Texas, but of course, the first time they played is going the other way entirely, and Georgia got after the quarterback really well. Head coaches, I mean, who do you like in this game? You got Kirby Smart, you got Steve Sarkisian. Of course, I think Sark is ascending as well as Smart. Smart's obviously the best coach in college football right now. Once Nick Saban went out, he's the guy that's got multiple national championships that's still at the peak. Of course, Dabo, he's got a couple as well. But if you have to pick a head coach for this game, you've got to pick Kirby Smart. He's been in these situations. He's been in national championships. He's been in playoffs multiple times. More often than not, they're playing in playoffs. And this is Coach Sark's second year in the playoffs, so they've done it before. But this is the first time he's been in an SEC championship game. Now, he's been in Big 12 championship. I get it. Very similar, but totally different animal when you're at SEC. Smart's been in these SEC championship games so many years. It's just old hat to those guys. So had to pick Kirby Smart right here for this one. Next thing to think about is the coaching staffs. Offensive coordinators for Georgia, you got Mike Bobo, you got T-Rob on the defense, and really you got Kirby Smart running that as well. But Bobo's been all over the place. He's had some really good years. He's had some really bad years. I mean, there are times when he's been fired. There have been times when he just has left on his own accord. But he's a journeyman that learned from Monken whenever he was still there at Georgia and trying to carry that over. And then you're looking at on the offensive side for Texas, you got Kyle Flood as the OC, but really, I mean, it's Steve Sarkisian. So you got Sark versus Kirby Smart. I mean, really in the matchup, offense versus defense. On defense for Texas, you got Pete Kwiatkowski, who's done an amazing job. They do a great job being aggressive, but still not giving up big plays. So really impressive what he's been able to build. Obviously, it starts with personnel and the recruiting from Coach Sark and the rest of the staff as well. But Pete Kwiatkowski did an amazing job, one of the better defense coordinators in the country, and obviously shows up with number 2 overall rating defensively, and just the way that they played has been unbelievable. Anything about the Texas coaching staff without Jeff Banks, some of the best special teams in the country, and we know how Coach Banks can recruit multiple levels of talent right there. So both really good coaching staffs, but on this one, I'm going to have to lean with Texas's coaching staff. I mean, Kyle Flood is the OC. I mean, that's a heck of a get right there. Obviously, he's O-line as well. And Coach Sark's basically got the skill guys, got the quarterbacks, and then Kolinicki on the defensive side has done a really good job as well. So slightly into Texas there for the coaching staff. Next part in our model that we want to kind of talk about is just the talent composite. These two teams are unbelievable as far as talent composite. Georgia's number 2 in the country. Only team that's got a better talent composite is Alabama. And, of course, that's one of the teams that beat Georgia. So number 2 talent composite there for Georgia, and Texas has the number 4 talent composite. I mean, top 5 guys, there's not going to be a whole lot of difference. They're absolute dogs all over the field. Great players. They're big, they're strong, they can run, and they've been developed in 2 really good programs here with Georgia and Texas. So absolute dogs all over the field. Probably 20-plus future NFL guys be on the field and be on display for this one. And, of course, it really comes down to Carson Beck and Quinn Ewers. Now, what in the world are we going to get from either of these guys? Who knows? I mean, who knows? I mean, Quinn Ewers could go out there and throw for 350. It wouldn't surprise me. Carson Beck could go out there throw for 350, and it wouldn't surprise me. But either one of them could go out there and throw 3 or 4 picks, and I wouldn't be surprised with that either. So both these quarterbacks, up and down, good schemes, good guys on the outside, but who shows up and makes plays? And just looking at year to year, I mean, this is Carson Beck's 2nd year of really starting. This is Quinn Ewers' 3rd year, and he's missed a couple games. Obviously, you have Arch Manning have a little bit of a role in this one, so that could be something to take a little bit of pressure off Quinn Ewers as well. But Carson Beck, the way this offense goes is the way Carson Beck goes. And he's had 28 touchdowns, but he's had 12 interceptions. And Ewers has had 2,300 yards, 24 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. So both of them have had good years. I mean, comparatively, Beck's obviously thrown for a lot more yards, 3,400 yards. Ewers was out for a couple of games. Arch obviously played for 2 games, and they still were able to win those. But I really think whoever the guy that shows up in this game is going to be the team that wins. Whoever turns it over, it's going to be hard to win this football game because it's going to come down to just 2 or 3 plays here and there because I think both defenses are going to come to play. And for me, I personally like Quinn Ewers just a little bit better. If I had to pick one of these quarterbacks to play for me, I would pick Quinn Ewers just based off of a little bit more experience, a little more steady, because there are times when Carson Beck looks like, you know, top 5 pick, and then there are times when he looks like he's not going to get drafted at all. And Ewers has been consistent, nothing just extremely flashy this year, but he's been a good football player, and he's got the talent to do everything you want on the football field. Next thing to think about that may be a factor in this game before we tell you what our pick is and what the model thinks is the intangibles on this one. Now, Georgia is playing in their backyard. I know it was an overtime game. 8 overtime, something stupid like that. In Georgia, are they playing their best football? I don't know. I don't think Georgia Tech is just a world beater as far as a team, but they were a physical team, and they jumped out on Georgia. Now, was Georgia focused the whole time, or were they just looking ahead to the SEC championship? I don't know. But either way, that was concerning right there, that Georgia Tech game. But they also played on Friday. They played Georgia Tech in Atlanta on Friday, and then drove back. They slept in their own beds, and they were done. They were looking forward to the SEC championship game, basically looking at Texas on Saturday when Texas had to go play a night game in Kyle Field. Very emotional game. I don't think as physical or as draining as probably that Georgia Tech game was on Georgia, but it was on Saturday night. So more than 24 hours of rest difference here for the Georgia team, more than 24 hours of focus on the other opponent. So I think the intangibles right here lean pretty heavily towards Georgia. I know everybody at home really doesn't think that 24 hours is just a huge thing, but when you're kind of banged up, beat up, whatever it is, and you got ETN that's maybe going to go, maybe not, and he was a big factor in the first game. Just all the guys that were out there fighting in that game, they got 24 hours to get healed up, get stronger, get their legs back underneath them for what's obviously going to be an absolute battle out there against Texas. with all that being said, I think both these teams are really good football teams and have a chance to make some noise in the playoff. And both of them are going to be in there, obviously. But to me on this one, I think Texas's defense is going to travel. I think their motivation for this to overcome that loss, that was an ugly loss that everybody felt like they were outmatched. I think their pride is going to kind of come into factor right here. They're going to be a lot more physical up front, be able to run the ball a little bit more, protect the quarterback, not make him win everything, and protect the football a little bit better. I mean, Georgia, especially if ETN is not 100% or not playing, they're going to have to throw the ball. All it is Carson Beck, and then Texas defense is going to tee off. They'll get a couple turnovers. And if Texas can just hold on to the football, run it a little bit, take their shots here and there, they don't have to force anything, and trust that defense, I really see Texas pulling this one out. And the model right here, brought to you by Jimmy's Sportsbook, the guy that you used to know in high school, that now runs his own sportsbook, and his claim to fame is that he pays out every time, 90% of the time. So really appreciate Jimmy sponsoring this section. But to me, I've got Texas winning this one. I've got Texas covering. I've got them at -6 right here. So if you can get a line at 2.5, I really feel like Texas is going to cover. They're going to win and continue to roll, continue their momentum right here as they roll into the playoffs. So Texas, have them coming to the SEC year one, taking care of business, and walking away with the championship. But if you made it to this point, make sure you click on this video right here. This is what YouTube thinks you like, and we'll see you guys again in the next video.